Hi, this is Dr. Don. This is part 2 of our deeper dive into that big code chunk in the Lab 1 Quick Start. The first part, we just covered the manipulation of the data wrangling to get it ready for this plotting portion. You can see we're using that data object we created, UN votes 1, which has just 4 variables and 1,100 observations. Let's look at that again just to refresh our memory. You can see here we've got 4 columns in our table, our data table. One for country, one for year, one for issue, and then the percent of time that China, in this case, voted yes on this issue in 1971. In other words, these issues come up for multiple votes during those years. And we've only got 3 countries in here. If we scroll down, let's see, we've got Russia. Remember, I didn't change from the original. And down at the bottom, we should have the United States again. The votes, the years on that vote, the issue, and the percent of times that the United States voted yes. So that's our data. I'm going to close that and go back here to the code chunk. Again, we're starting with that data object, and we use the pipe operator to get started. And we're saying, take this data object, and then using the ggplot function, which means we're getting into the mapping. And in this mapping, we're going to set the aesthetics. The aesthetics just mean the basic layout of the graph. You can see we're going to have year on the x-axis, that's one of our variables. Percent yes on the y-axis, that's another variable. And then we're going to color using the country. We've got 3 countries, so we should have 3 colors. So I'm just going to run this first part again. Stop before the plus. Remember, inside ggplot, we use a plus instead of the pipe operator. So again, we started with the pipe operator. We're now inside ggplus. So for all of these and thens, we'll use the plus. So I'm going to run that, and it's just Control Enter. And you can see we've created our chart down here. We've got the year on the x-axis and percent yes on the y-axis, and it's pretty plain, no data plotted yet because we haven't told it what to put on there. So we're going to go back up here. In the next line, we're saying, okay, we want to plot points for each of these data points, observations. We want a point, just a dot, and we're using something called alpha, which stands for the transparency. 0.4 means it's about 40% transparent. 1 would be total black, for example, or totally solid color, and 0 would be no color. So we're going to run those lines, and Control Enter. So you see now we've got all these dots on there, and the chart automatically, because we've got country to be the color, shows us the colors for China, Russia, and the United States. Kind of hard to make much sense out of that. So we're going to do a little more manipulation. First thing we're going to do is manually set these colors. Now we could just go with the system colors, but sometimes you want to change those to match. For example, if you're doing it for your organization, you might want to change those colors. We're just going to change them here using the scale color manual function, and then a function within that function is called values. And then we're using the concatenate function there, the C, which just says we're going to do a bunch of things. And we want Russia. We use the quotation marks because that's a categorical variable. We'll talk about that. I think we've already talked about that a little bit, about the types of variables. That's a level of a categorical variable, so we need quotation marks around it. Purple is a color. Again, we've got quotes around that. Comma. United States, we want to be royal blue. China to be orange. So now I'm going to run those codes, stopping short of the plus, Control Enter, and you can see now we've changed those colors. That's all we did. We just selected the colors. Now we're going to put a line on here, and we're using a function called the geom smooth. There's a number of methods in there. Don't worry about those so much. We're just using one called LOS, which means it's a smooth line. It's not a straight line. And then SE stands for standard error, something we'll talk about later on in the course. We don't want to show those, so we use false. So I'm going to run again, start from the front and go down and stop just short of the plus. Control Enter. And you can see now we've got 3 of these smooth lines. One for Russia, one for the United States, one for China. And again, but it was kind of hard to make heads or tails of that because we've got all of these dots. Those stand for the votes on the issues. It's kind of hard to make sense of that. So we know we've got 6 issues. Remember when we looked at that in the UN votes over here, if we look at the issues, factor was 6 levels. And it lists them out there. We don't need to know right now what those are, but there's 6 levels. So it'd be nice if we had 6 charts. So that's what we're going to do with this facet wrap. And we're going to use the function facet wrap, and then this is a function of, that's what the little tilde means, function of, and we're going to use issue, that particular variable, issue, which again has 6 levels. It needs to be a categorical variable when we're doing facet wrap. Can't use continuous because that would give you zillions of charts. So we're going to just go ahead and run those lines. Control Enter. Whoops, what did I do here? Let me pause and check out my... Oh, that was not very smart. Did you see what I did? I left out the first 2 lines. I didn't select those. You gotta have the data, and you've got to have all the lines of code. So I debugged there a bit. Now I'll go down here. It'll run okay. Control Enter. And you can see now, since I've run all the code, we've got our 6 charts, one for each of the 6 issues. Now the rest of these lines of code are just prettying up the chart. The first line says we want the Y scale, instead of just 1.00, we want those to be in percent. So when we run that, it'll change these to a percent. And then our labs function, we want to set a title, so we don't have a title and chart now, and we give it the name. Again, we put that inside the double quotes and a comma. We want a subtitle, 1946 to 2019, which are the years of these votes, and then there's a comma because we're still in the same function. We want the y-axis to be labeled percent yes instead of written out that way, which is kind of funky. And then we want the x-axis to say year with a capitalization. And over here in our legend, we want to capitalize country, and that's what we do there. So now I can just run this whole chunk. And you can see we put it up. We've got the percentage on the y-axis for each of these facet charts. We got a fancy title and a subtitle, and we've capitalized country. So you can do a lot with ggplot graphing, and this just covers over. Don't get too intimidated again. Remember, when you get these, you'll be given the bulk of the chunk, and all you've got to do is to go in to change the name of the data set you want, which you didn't have to do that in this particular exercise, but you will. You'll be given a new data set, and then we'll change out the variables names and some things. Here we're using year and percent and country. You may have different variable names to change out. But that's what you're doing, copy, paste, edit. So I hope this helps a bit.